Leila Rao. I'm here with the next installment of our LIA100 series. My guest today is Linda Cook, who has been an experienced Agile coach. She's done some amazing things and is going to share with us her journey. Welcome, Linda.
Oh, thank you, Leah. I appreciate being invited to join this auspicious group you've put together.
Well, glad to have you here. So I wanted to ask you something about your journey, because we know you as the Agile expert and the coach who presents and does all these things, but how did you become this person?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I'll try to narrow the focus a little bit. And so I started out in the technology field as a developer. And as a developer, my very first experience was working in a small shop. So I had the advantage of having to do everything, right? And really learning every aspect. It wasn't just about being a programmer. I had to learn operations, networking, data management, all those things. So it was a fabulous foundation. From there, I went to a huge insurance company where now I'm on a team that has as many developers as the whole company had in my prior installation. So now I get to see a whole different side of the world that is very big business, and with it has a lot of the costs associated with the overhead of being in a big business. And I was accustomed to truly being fairly independent and able to survive on my own. And I think that helped me. I also started out my very first programming job. I was the first woman who wasn't in an administrative role. I was not a key punch operator. I was not a secretary. And so had to overcome a lot of hurdles there, and learned early on to build a tough exterior so that I could kind of hang in with the team and sort of roll with the punches. And I think that that's one of the things that served me well all along, is I really am able to pick up on the culture and the vibe of a group and kind of go with that. And then with it, once I'm in the group, you know, I spend time trying to influence them to hopefully be better than they were. So that was kind of part of the start. As I get to this big company, enter in all these new technologies are coming around. So I've been in this industry for quite a long time, and have had the good fortune of working on every major technology change that's come around in the last 30 years. And I've always enjoyed that. So I've always had this thirst for learning the new things and kind of riding the waves of opportunity that came with changing your career and being flexible as we go along. So I, roll the clock forward. I find myself in the 90s, and we're doing web development, and all of a sudden things don't match any longer, right? The processes that we did before simply weren't serving us well. And literally we just started making stuff up, and it was quite lightweight. I was doing stand-ups before I knew what they were, and just truly making up very lightweight ways of getting work done. So we go through that, get through the other side of the dot-bomb era, and I have an opportunity to work with a very large organization who was going to transition all of their technology and move forward into the next realm. And to do that, one of my first jobs there was to help build what is the process we were going to use. And actually there started developing processes based on a new model of working, right? With distributed technologies and all the fun things that comes with. Next thing you know, the inevitable happens. A new CIO comes along, and they want to roll back to the old way. So I no longer fit in that model. And I got an opportunity to work with Sanjeev Augustine back in 2004. And I'll never forget when Sanjeev introduced me. First off, he asked me, how long had I been Agile? And I said, truly, Sanjeev, I've been looking for you people. I don't know where you've been. I'm just so glad I have found you. I was born this way, and I've been forced to work in the other way. And I'm just so happy to now be in the new way of working and to be a part of the Agile community. And so a lot of gratitude for Sanjeev and helping me actually be a professional coach, working with him. So with that, I've had the very good fortune to learn from many of our industry leaders, and owe a lot of thanks and gratitude to people, Diana Larson, Esther Derby, Johanna Rothman, Linda Rising. I mean, I really could just go on for a long time. Mike Cohn, Jim Highsmith, Alistair, lots of people. And it was an exciting time to be in the Agile community because things were really just getting started in the early 2000s. And I spent as much time and money as I could learning about all these new things that people were coming up with and just testing them out. Along the way, I took a Master Black Belt in Lean Six Sigma course. And this was before we were really looking at Lean in our community. And as I was working on this Lean Six Sigma program, I felt there was so much that actually could be applied within the Agile community, and started actually working with operations teams and helping them utilize Kanban and really just sort of figuring it out on our own. So that led me to the next really sort of in-depth from using Scrum and helping to build teams to now crossing over away from software development, getting a part of operations and helping operations figure out how do they work on capital projects when 80% of what they have to do is keep the lights on, right? And there are some really interesting challenges with that.
Wow, that's an extraordinary journey. I want to pause a little bit and ask you about some of those points. I've got to assume that you've experienced being the only woman in the room.
Yes, still.
Okay. Unfortunately, yes. How was that experience like for you? Something you just got used to and it's a non-entity, or is it something that you have to respond to differently every time you experience it?
That's a very good question. So I am accustomed to being the only woman in the room, or one of few where, it's noticeable that the room, if there are 20 men, maybe there are 2 women, if you're lucky. And recognized early on the need to figure out how to work in a man's work style, right? And to learn to communicate in a way that they could respect. And with that, not only respect, but also, I guess, acknowledge the fact that you think differently. Women do come at the world from a different posture, thank goodness. And I've always had a good sense of value for the differences, right? And really appreciating the differences. I think one of the folks has told me along the way that my real superpower is that I really do get to know the people that I work with. And I do that with the men that I work with. And I can relate to the fact that they like to go hunting and fishing, or that they like cars or whatever. And just being able to relate to them on the things that they find enjoyable and relate to them on an intellectual level as well, I think is always really important. With that, my nature is to have a pretty strong personal character, and people recognize pretty early on that I can be a force to be reckoned with at times. And
sorry, go ahead.
That kind of comes with the package with me. I am a WYSIWYG type of girl, and I'm confident in that, and have had the fortune of having strong women in my life as role models, not just at work, but in my life. And I think that's really what's helped a lot, which gave me the confidence to be strong, and to that combined with a true desire for learning and a curious nature, I think has helped me fit into these multiple groups that I've encountered.
It sounds like you've taken what would be a constraint of not being in the majority and turned that into an asset, both in terms of being able to read the room and in terms of being able to work with those who are different from you and teaching them how to work with someone who is not just like them.
Yes, very much so.
That sounds like a pretty awesome description for an Agile coach.
No, thank you. Yes, it is some part and parcel of what it takes to be an Agile coach. This concept that we really do need to be welcoming of all voices and all peoples and all cultures, in technology. We have the good fortune to work with so many different people and who have so many different types of background. And I think that that is part of the strength of the industry of technology, is that we are able to blend all these things together and figure out what is the best of the best for us. And it's part of what I also enjoy about our work, is that it is ever changing, right? There's always someone to challenge the way I think, and I do enjoy that type of I guess intellectual stimulation, I would call it.
Absolutely. The follow-up question, has it gotten better?
Has it gotten better? It has certainly changed. I've worked in many different industries now. Um, I had the good fortune of working in the industry early on when there were a lot of women in the industry. And I got to see women in leadership roles early in my career in technology. And this was prior to the whole .com era. Unfortunately, .com really changed the physical makeup of the people that were coming in our industry and became much more predominantly male. And I've worked through that, in a pretty equal distribution of men and women, to having worked through an area when it was really very well dominated by men. I do see it coming back some, but we're nowhere near what I first experienced in my career. And I think there's still some, interesting challenges that we have to figure out how to overcome.
That's a really interesting perspective, and one I did not know. I don't remember the time when there were that many in IT. So thank you for letting me know this has not always been the case.
Yes. When I first worked in the insurance industry, and they were really early on working in computing, back then they took women who were already working in administrative roles and actually trained them, because they were forced to. They simply couldn't find the people to do the work. So they trained the women how to do this work, and they were quite successful. And, I think if you look back in early science, and we look back in NASA's history, for example, there are lots of examples of women who were strong in the math field back in the, early 1900s, and strong in the aerospace industry in the 60s and 70s, right? It's that these things seem to come and go over periods of time. I'm hopeful that we're going to see another period of time where women will again have a stronger role, I'll say, in what's happening in the technology industry.
I hope so, and let's look forward to that.
Yes.
But I do want to talk about another part of your history, which is you're obviously a community leader. You've been so involved in the community as a speaker, as an Agile Alliance board member. How did you get involved with the Agile community, and why does it mean so much to you?
So I got involved in the Agile community early on. I met a gentleman named George Dinwiddie, who's from Maryland. And George is a wonderful person. And we actually started the Maryland Agile group together. And it kind of grew from there. Part of the reason I got involved was we needed more people in our community who had any idea what we were talking about when we talked about Agile anything, right? And that was really the impetus for why did we form these local groups. We needed to get out to the masses, get the message out there, get people interested. It grew from there. So from the local Maryland group, I got involved with the Agile Leadership Network, served on their board for a bit, and then also got invited to be on the Agile Alliance board. And there, I think, was probably one of my most rewarding experiences as a board member and volunteer, because of the sheer strength of intelligence and persons that were on the board. When I joined the board, Diana Larson was its chair and served through several women chairs there, as well as men. And I still believe today that the work in the Agile Alliance best represents me, and that it's tool agnostic It's methodology agnostic. We welcome everyone who wants to be a part of this community. And so I still have very strong connections there, and hold that group in high regard, despite the fact that they don't offer any certifications, and as such are not the wealthiest of the Agile communities that you might be a part of.
Absolutely. Can I ask a follow-up question about how do you think our community has changed? Because we went from no one knew what Agile was, and now it's the biggest buzzword ever. How have we as the community evolved along with that learning curve?
So I think there's there are two sides to that coin. The good thing is that our reach is much more expansive than it was 10 years ago, right? Almost everyone in technology at least has heard of Agile. The other side of that coin is that almost everyone in technology has tried something Agile and didn't get good guidance. So I'm afraid right now that, whereas when I first became a coach, I was walking into organizations that didn't know anything about Agile at all. They were transitioning from traditional models and like, we need to get us some of this Agile stuff, come and help us. Now, when I go into an organization, it's more like, yeah, we've been doing the Agile thing for years, and this thing didn't work, and that thing doesn't work, and we can't do this here. So now we're trying to work through the, how do we help people repair whatever early damage was done by their first or second go round into the Agile space, and just getting people to understand that, Agile, Scrum, and Lean are not synonymous. They're all different things.
Yes, there is a lot of confusion around what these words mean. I think we could have this conversation forever, but we're time limit, so I really want to ask you, what would be your advice for other women who are now in this transitionary period of Agile is and isn't, and they want to become coaches, they're already coaches? Any advice that they can apply from your experience?
Sure. So first advice is always stay true to yourself. Be who you are. If you are strong and you're out there and that's your personality, be that. And at the same time, if you're more quiet, intellectual, whatever, just be true to yourself, right? Be authentic. Invite people to change. When we first started in this industry, we were force feeding Agile to people. Now we've learned that that's perhaps not the best way, and be welcoming of the different challenges that you're going to encounter. See them as the learning opportunities that they are, and just, keep marching forward. Be happy with little wins. I do tell people you're not meant to be a coach if you can't live off of very, very small victories. We live for these moments in time, and I can tell by your grin that you understand exactly what I'm talking about. The other thing I think is a huge plus right now is that women are beginning to organize in the Agile community. I've had the good fortune of working with some women on Women in Agile that started with the Agile Alliance. Most recently, a Women in Agile Open conference that was held just last month. And now we have a community to support you. That's not just what I'll call some of the headliners of our industry, right? Is that you can look around in your own community, find other women to work with, commiserate with, learn from, and grow in your career.
That is incredibly powerful advice, Linda. And I'm going to wrap it up there because of a time limit. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the time. Take good care now. I look forward to chatting with you again.